And I guess to begin, since Jeffrey is here, I do want to just introduce him and Bila, because they are probably the two newest members of our global IQ team. Bila has joined recently in Mozambique, and I actually just spent the last week with him working on a number of things. So he will be part of the global IQ team moving forward. He's an accounting wizard, which is really great because they have a lot of accounting projects based in northern Mozambique. And Jeffrey just joined us here in Zambia as the director M&E for IDE Zambia. So both are brand new, and this is their first iCall and probably their first time interacting with most of you. So if you have a chance after this call is over, send them an email, maybe introduce yourself, just tell them who you are, and welcome them to the family. I'm going to now try to screen share again. Hopefully it actually works. Sorry, this is the first time for some of this testing. Okay. All right, I think you guys should be able to see that. Okay, so I'm going to keep it like this for now. Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the third iCall, and I think they get a bit more sophisticated each time. So hopefully next time we have some of these kinks worked out and we can kind of smoothly go straight into a call. But I do just, normally we spend a bit of time kind of introducing everybody, and people kind of go around and share something that they're working on. But this time we're going to kind of go straight into it because I think this topic is going to garner a lot of interest, and people do want to discuss it afterwards. So rather than doing kind of a formal introduction, I'm just going to dive straight in. But the topic for the call is basically to discuss one example of the new dynamic kind of cloud-based and tablet-based mobile data collection that we're doing in a number of contexts across IDE. But we're specifically going to be looking at the Zambia system. The reason why we chose this is just because we've had a lot of interest recently on this. Both externally, people are kind of contacting us because they're interested in how we're doing it, but also internally because it does it leads to a much more efficient kind of data collection, much more dynamic database, and hopefully eases reporting and makes for kind of smarter program management. So with that being said, this is an overview of the demonstration, or overview and demonstration of the tablet-based sales tracking system from Zambia. Basically, we're going to kind of go through the three main pieces of the system, which the first piece is kind of the Salesforce components. These are the pieces that live in the cloud or on the internet. The second piece is TerraWorks tools, which are the mobile data collection tools that feed into Salesforce. And then lastly, Stu is going to take over, and he's going to talk about reporting and data visualizations, and how you can use it to communicate both with your teams internally and externally with donors, and hopefully kind of kick up our business development and communications as well. And then we're going to finish off with kind of a few points or things that we've learned along the way, difficulties we faced, things to consider, and then hopefully we'll have time for some discussion where people can kind of share their ideas and possibly what they're working on that's similar to or different from this. So going straight into it, just a little bit of background. Most of you probably already know this, but Zambia, I actually live here now, and I'm not just working on the Zambia program, I'm working globally, but it happened to coincide with the startup of the FBA scale-up. In Zambia, we have a version of the FBA model, which we have in a number of countries, in a number of different flavors. But here in Zambia, they are private, kind of freely operating agents, and they are actively linking smallholder farmers to inputs, equipment, credit, financial opportunities, and they're also assisting with some trainings and some output marketing. So there's kind of 6 main areas of service. The structure is there's about 200 to 250 FBAs that are providing services to what will eventually be 20,000 smallholder farmers. That's the goal for the project anyway. And those 200 to 250 FBAs are supported by 16 field officers, 5 team leaders, 6 technical coordinators, and 3 or 4 senior directors. And basically, I think what's interesting about this model is that FBAs can connect their smallholders to any number of inputs, equipment, credit, training, output markets. So the system has to be flexible enough to capture any range of services, any range of treatments, if you will. So it needs to capture information for the management of the program. That's kind of first and foremost. We need to have information so that Duncan, the country director, Lottie, and Ken, kind of senior directors, can manage their teams to best achieve the results in an efficient and cost-effective way. That's by far the most important piece. But it also needs to be able to satisfy accountability and reporting requirements for the Swedish SIDA, who's the primary donor, among a few others. And then lastly, we have an ongoing kind of operational research initiative where we're kind of constantly tweaking the FBA model so that it is more efficient, more efficacious. And so we need some key data to be able to make those operational decisions in an evaluative context. So, in the kind of a bit of detail, what do we need this system to be able to do? Basically, in a very basic sense, from an accountability standpoint, we need to be able to track the volume, the value, and the earnings as measured by kind of number of clients, number of new clients, total value of sales, as well as total earned commissions or markups. We need to be able to do that for each of the areas of service. So what you can imagine is we have 6 areas of service times 4 kind of main indicators. I just got to notice that you're not seeing the presentation anymore. Okay, is it back? Should be back. Okay. So we need to collect volume, value, and earnings for each of the areas of service. And in addition to that, we need to be able to keep track on a very broad but detailed level, kind of everywhere all the time, keep track of the trainings that are being conducted with FBAs by IDE staff, demo plots and kind of similar marketing events, as well as a very efficient way of keeping track somehow of farmer records, so that if we want to, and if we need to, we can do household level sampling for more sample-based data collections. And then lastly, we need to keep track of kind of this whole network of firms that are supporting the FBA model. So that's in a broad brushstrokes kind of what the system needs to be able to do. So first major chunk of the system is Salesforce. Salesforce is ultimately a system that exists on the internet. It's cloud-based. It's a dynamic database system that originally was used for kind of customer management. We have now kind of used it for a lot of other things. But basically, it's dynamic in that when one piece is updated, anything linked to that table will be updated as well. It's cloud-based, so it does not live on a single machine, but it is accessible anywhere, whether it's in one of your field offices, in your main office, from Denver, wherever you need to access it, it can be accessed. And lastly, a new benefit of it is that it will be linked to the global KPI system, which some of you have worked with me on doing an impact audit, which measures, or we kind of take stock of all of the evidence for a single project or package. And so this will be linked to that as well. But basically there's 5 main pieces. There's a demo plot table, or object is what it's called in Salesforce. FBA sales and service object. Training object, which is kind of a table of every training that ever happens with some basic details about what happened in that training, how many people. Firm registry, and an IDE staff registry. The backbone to this whole system is the FBA sales and services. This actually has a couple subcomponents. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty for that, but it's basically there's 5 main tables or objects that are all tied together and linked in Salesforce. So when Salesforce exists on the internet, so you can access it through any web browser. So if you did have a system like this, which Cambodia, Nicaragua, Nepal, Mozambique, Zambia all have kind of access to Salesforce, and you open it up and you will see kind of this home screen. And this specific home screen is the Zambia FBA application. And you can see across the top there are those same 5 major objects that were in the previous picture. You have the FBA object, you have training registry, firm registry, demo plots. And on that FBA object is the sales and performance as well. So if we were to dive into the FBA table, it'd be sort of similar to opening up an Excel file, but we're going to click on this FBA object, and let's see kind of what's inside of there. So once we get into the FBA object, you will see that there's a giant registry, kind of name, who created it, so that's the field officer who's responsible for that FBA, who trains them, date that they were added, you kind of basic higher level information about that FBA. This in and of itself is quite useful for the Zambia program, just so they know how many FBAs they have. But if we dig down even further and we go to an individual FBA profile, which whenever I talk to teams about this in the field, I kind of talk about a Facebook profile. So basically you're creating a Facebook profile for each of these FBAs, and information about that FBA, including photographs, the events they've done, their relationship status, all of that will be on their FBA profile. So let's click on Francisca, which is one of our FBAs that Collint is working with in the Copper Belt. So you will see that Francisca has a lovely picture of her sitting in front of her field. She joined, she was added to the system November 13th. That's in the upper right-hand corner. She's currently a small-scale agro dealer. She's active, which is indicated in the status section. And we were able to capture a GPS location exactly for where her plot is, or where her home is. And if we continue to scroll down, we can actually get a lot more information. So if we scroll down, you will see that the top 3 kind of rows of data, this is kind of summary information across all time. So across all of the updates that we've ever done for her, we can see how many clients she's served, how many she's provided advice, services, inputs, equipment, credit, output marketing. We can see how many she's served across all the areas of service. We can see how much she's sold across every area of service, and we can see how much she's earned for each of the areas of service. If you go down further, you can see a child, it's called a child record or a child object. On top of Francisca's profile and linked to it are a number of FBA updates. So every month you see that there's an update conducted for Francisca. So we can actually look in and see each month what are her statistics. Below that, we have information about each family member. Can somebody mute their microphone, please? I think it might be Jeffrey.
I remove the microphone?
Can you mute it? There's quite a bit of background noise. Thank you. Okay. Just go ahead and mute it so that we can't hear anything on your end. It's the little microphone button. Okay. So we can also see, if we want, an additional child object is enterprise members. So Francisca runs an FBA enterprise which has a number of members who participate in it. Sometimes there's husband, wife, sometimes there's a husband with 3 boys, sometimes there's 5, 10 family members, who knows. But each one of those we can click in and dive into individual household member information, where we can learn about trainings they've received, male, female, age, education, etc. So that's kind of the basic FBA profile. Continuing on, let's go back to our main home screen and we're going to click on the training registry object. I just kind of want to show you what this looks like. It's very similar to the FBA object, but instead it's kind of a registry of every training that has taken place. And these trainings are of FBAs. They are not farmer trainings. They are the field officers training FBAs on certain content. But we have actually GPS locations of where those took place, so we can see how active our field officers have been. Our team leaders can keep track of where our field officers are conducting trainings and how frequently, which is going to be used as a performance tracking tool here in Zambia as well. And you also have a running tally of the number of females, number of males that have received each type of training here. So if we want, we can click into the trainer, Josephat Mumbwe, or Mbwe. He's a field officer here in Zambia, and we can see kind of how active this IDE staff person has been. Okay, let me add Yi back in real fast. Sorry. Yi, are you back?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Can you guys all still see the screen? Hopefully. I think so. Okay. So if we click in and we want to look at an individual IDE staff member, we can look at how productive they've been. So we see that over time, Josephat has conducted what looks to be 5 trainings in the past month and a half. And we see that he was very active in the beginning of November and that he's kind of tailed off. And that may be for a number of reasons. Maybe he kind of is helping his FBAs do field cropping or something like that. But it's a point of conversation. You know, you can interact with your staff and say, you know, we see that you haven't done as many FBA trainings, so let's talk about why. So it is a tool for kind of keeping track of what's going on in the field as well, which is hugely valuable, especially in a program like this where you have information going out from the head office in Lusaka and disseminating all the way out through a very pyramidal structure. So it does help to kind of manage that. So moving forward, I'm going to now talk about the TerraWorks components. So that was basically the main pieces of Salesforce and kind of what it looks like. There's a lot more detail in there, and I'd be more than happy to share it with anybody. But I'm just kind of broadly going through this right now. So TerraWorks. TerraWorks is the tool that was designed by the Grameen Foundation to basically it's a mobile-based data collection tool that allows you to map fields directly into Salesforce objects. So TerraWorks basically allows us to build custom forms and instruments using a very simple drag and drop editor. You do that within Salesforce. Once you have the form built, you can map TerraWorks fields directly into a Salesforce object and directly into that dynamic database that you created in Salesforce. And then lastly, and a big benefit, which I think we're still learning how to fully utilize it, is to retrieve up-to-date information from Salesforce actually on the mobile devices, so on the smartphones, on the tablets that you're using and that your field officers are using in the field. So basically, we have the field down in the bottom left. There's some corn, there's some tomatoes, there's some livestock in a hut, and we have some field activities. These are things that our field officers are doing on a weekly, daily basis. They're recruiting new FBAs, they're kind of going and visiting FBAs monthly to talk about what they're doing and how they're helping the farmers. We have field officers that are helping to establish new demo plots, and they're also doing regular FBA trainings where they're getting people together and training them on running a business or growing cowpeas or something like that. So anytime they do one of these basic field activities, they will also complete a 3 to 5 minute long TerraWorks form. They're not going out like a typical survey enumerator where their sole purpose is to collect data. Instead, they are doing their normal job and they happen to collect some data along the way. So the 5 main forms are adding FBA enterprises, adding an FBA member, doing a productivity update for that FBA. Lastly, and then we have logging a demo plot and logging a training. And what this does is you pass information from the field through your mobile device, and it maps it directly into Salesforce. So I'll show some brief, I realize time is going quickly, so just want to show you basically what TerraWorks looks like. So when you open up TerraWorks on a mobile device, you'll see this home screen. Basically 4 blue buttons. It really couldn't be any simpler. You have a synchronize button, jobs button, settings button, and performance. The button that people will become most familiar with is jobs. And once a field officer or an enumerator or a FBA, if you have FBAs with mobile tech, they open up this jobs menu, they will see a number of jobs that they are responsible for. This list happens to be very long because it includes Nepal and Cambodia as well as Zambia. But what you'll see is that there are, just from that last picture, you will see that there's 5 main forms in this little infographic. And in this jobs list, there's also kind of 5 main forms. Adding an FBA, adding an FBA member, doing an update of the FBA performance, registering a demo plot, and doing a training. So once you open up, let's just pick the Add FBA job. This is going to take you into the form that is required to fill out when you add a new FBA to the system. So the first thing you'll see is you need to pick where the FBA is located. So we pick one of the provinces. That will then take us into the specific location. And once we identify the specific location, we will then proceed through all the other questions. I'm not going to go through every one, but basically there's questions about the status, when this update took place, how much they sold in inputs, their name, how much they sold in outputs. There's about 5 minutes worth of questions, all of which look very similar to this. Again, somebody, can you please mute your microphone? Somebody has background noise again. Yeah, thank you very much. So once you kind of proceed through all the questions, these are the basic kind of numerical or text questions. And this is a part that people are particularly fascinated by. How do you capture a GPS location? First, you basically create a question in TerraWorks using the survey editor where you want to capture GPS. And all you do is click a big button that says record location. Once a certain accuracy is achieved, using the GPS in the handheld device, you click record location, and then it passes those geocoordinates from the GPS device into the TerraWorks form, and then you're done. So very simple. You record location, next. That's as simple as it is. Sometimes this can take a little bit longer if you have poor reception, but for the most part, it's quite easy. The other piece, once you've finished capturing your GPS, answering all your questions, you need to mark this form as complete. And basically that would be kind of signing it or putting a check mark in the corner if you have a hard copy. But you kind of mark it as finished. There's nothing else that needs to be adjusted. Once you mark it as complete, you can either sync it now or sync it later. Obviously, we work in difficult environments where we don't have wonderful cell reception all the time. So a lot of times people will save jobs and sync them when they get home or when they go to town next. So you can sync it and save it for a later time, or you can sync it right on the spot. And as soon as you sync it, all of the data leaves the mobile device. It is no longer stored on the device, but is now in the cloud. So you don't have to worry about data confidentiality, data loss, things like that. And you instantly return back to the home screen. So really, it's a pretty simple interface. We haven't really, with a very minimal training, people pick it up quite quickly as far as user interface and design, just progressing through forms. The last bit, which, as I mentioned earlier, I think we're learning how to use this more and more. But there's a way that during the course of the survey or the form, you can create summary screens, which pull down the most up-to-date information about the record that you're updating and provide it to the person filling out the form. So you can create summary screens that give up-to-date information. And in Zambia, we have it providing the field officers with a live, up-to-date summary of how many clients they've had, if they've signed an MOU, which trainings they've completed, where they're located, things like that. But I think this could be quite a powerful tool if we use it kind of creatively. All right, so I'm going to pass it on to Stu, and we are going to, I think he's going to take the reins. We're going to try to transition the presentation over to him.
Okay, let me know if you can see my screen now.
I can see your screen.
Right.
Perfectly, yeah.
Good, thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Just to pick key factors in any system is not just that you can get information in, but that you can also get it out. And some of what Chris has already spoken to already gets at some of getting information out. You've seen some of the records in native Salesforce, the ability to retrieve data on the TerraWorks platform on the mobile device. For the most part, those are individual level records, so you're able to drill down and do what we call sort of lookup functions. So if you're trying to get information on Mr. Chongwei or Mr. Piri, then you can drill down into their record and get a whole range of information on them. And what I want to just look at very briefly is some of the tools we have for doing more aggregate level reporting, so the kinds of reports that you may need for management purposes, for regular review meetings, and for inclusion in reports as well that you're having to put together. And so we have three main tools you see on the left there. Tools that are provided native in Salesforce. And native just means that's what comes in the box with Salesforce. But we also have a couple of other tools that give us a little bit more flexibility in what we're able to do. So one of those is using something called installment, which is an add-in from Excel. It sits in Excel, and it pulls data from Salesforce onto your local version of Excel, so then you can manipulate the data in whatever way you need to. I think most of us have familiarity with Excel and feel comfortable in that environment. So being able to bring data into that environment gives us a good tool for being able to create.
Stu, Stu,
Sorry.
I took it over, so I'll just click through. I think because I'm the originator, I have to screen share it.
Okay, so I
So
guess that kind of makes it difficult for me to do some of the live demonstration. So the next page then, we're on the report.
No, I think that captures it. And if people are interested in knowing specifically what each team member's responsibilities are, they can either look at this or contact us, and we can kind of dive into that. But yeah, I think the idea is M&E team is more into verification and sharing of information much more than they were before.
So let's move to the lesson.
just a reminder that you're probably on mute still.
So he's got a question. What's the experience of transition? I don't know. Can you unmute? Maybe say a little bit more about that in terms of those particular aspects of that.
Yeah. I guess the question stems from, I remember arguing for introducing mobile data capture, and there was battery issues, and I guess is the question, how do we transition? Are we still doing like paper data collection while, how do we start integrating this transition? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like in Cambodia, for example, we've had several examples where we've gone and done it in one province, for example, to kind of test it out. And certainly in the initial stages, having people also collecting the data the way that they were before, so that you're doubling up. What you don't want to have is a failure in the field, and you've actually lost it. It's relying on this new system, and then something happened. So definitely, doubling up as we're going out to the field and doing initial testing, with a subset. Obviously, it varies from the obviously, we've been limited in terms of our technical support to date. We are in the process of hiring another staff person for support for this management information specialist. So hopefully that will bring us to a point. At the same time, we also need to be able to identify people locally who are able to.
And just going along with that, I think moving forward, the aim is to provide a lot more kind of documentation to the teams. So it really is kind of a full package where the little problems that we learned about in Cambodia, we can create kind of troubleshooting guides that can be referenced and actually stored on the tablets or mobile phones themselves, so that the team just has a lot more information on how to resolve these things quickly, because you lose momentum quite fast. So moving forward, the aim is to kind of produce a user's guide, a comprehensive user's guide for each of these systems, that can be shared among all team members that are using it. Yeah. I don't think so. I think I wish we had a bit more time just to hear what other people are interested in using this for. Or I think I would also be very interested in hearing about some solutions or potential things that other country programs are trying in this department. And I know, Shakib, you guys have been thinking about this quite intently. So maybe we can continue this conversation on the Google group, and so people can actually have a stream of thoughts and can be contributing to the conversation via email and through that Google group. But I do want to keep the conversation going and hear kind of other ways that we could be using this and other things that you guys are thinking about.
Well, we're excited to be moving into more use of this kind of technology, and I think it's an area where, as we work with some of the programs that we've worked with so far, it's somewhat gratifying to be able to offer something that actually makes people's lives easier. So, when you're working in monitoring and evaluation, you're often the person who's coming and knocking on the door and asking for data, for pain. And this is one of those areas where you feel like you can actually offer.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for participating. And what I'm going to do is I will try to render this video. So I have recorded it. I hope it worked. And I will post it onto the Google group as well. So if you have other team members or staff that want to look at it, you'll be able to find it there, and I'll notify you once it's available. Also, the slide deck is available on the Google group, so you can kind of take a look at that. And if you have specific questions, feel free to contact Stu or myself. The staff members here in Zambia, Daniel and Jeffrey, also can answer questions about their experiences actually in the field, so taking this out into the program itself. Daniel wasn't able to participate, but he has learned a lot along with us, and so he's a great wealth of information. So thank you very much. We will have our next iCall probably sometime in February. So every 3 months we're trying to have one. So I will be sending out another notification for that. We don't know what the topic is yet. If you have ideas for topics, please share them with us. We want to be presenting things and talking about things that are relevant. So if you ever have ideas for a call, please let us know. Thank you guys, and have a great holiday season and wonderful winter, if it's winter wherever you are. So have a great evening, day, morning, nighttime. Bye, everybody.